Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. More specifically, the end of Great Ace Attorney 2. We're reaching the climax here. We implicated Lord Strongheart at the end of the last episode after Judge Jigoku confessed to the murder of Gregson. But the whole thing is that we need to find out who the true Reaper of the Bailey is and the one who set up the assassin exchange and all of this stuff that led to all this incessant killing of someone who thinks that he is above the law or, in this case, is the embodiment of the law himself. So, that is why we have picked Lord Strongheart as the Reaper of the Bailey. But right now we left off at who we need to call to the stand to testify about the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. Because if you count off the people who would know anything about that autopsy, Gregson is dead. John H. Wilson is dead. But if I recall properly, I feel like Mikotoba helped John H. Wilson with his autopsies because he was a medical school he was a medical student at the time alongside Judge Jigoku, who was, studying law over here 10 years ago. I believe he was helping John H. Wilson with autopsies and learning things from him. So I feel like it's him. But before I get to that, there's a lot of interesting stuff that is about to happen. It is currently like 9 p.m. on May the 16th when I'm recording this. And in 1 hour at 10 p.m., the conclusion to Spike Chunsoft's I, the Somnium Files little experiment ARG, that they call it an ARG as in an alternate reality game, where we vote on the fate of two suspected terrible murderer / criminals on their thing. They basically offered us a proposition, and they were like, here are two posts on Twitter, on each of these characters' Twitter. We have them locked away in a back room, and if you can balance the likes and retweets between both tweets, they both live. If one gets more than the other, that person lives, and the other one dies. Good luck. So it's a social experiment, and we have to balance the fucking shit properly, or else one of them is going to die. And we don't know what the result of this is going to be. We don't know what it's going to do. I'm sure Spike Chunsoft has something special cooked up for us. Kotaro Uchikoshi, the madman himself. But I plan on making a more in-depth video about I, the Somnium Files and the cool stuff that the marketing team and just Uchikoshi and Spike Chunsoft, pretty much everyone involved in the game, what they do to make it so special. And why you should play the sequel that's coming out soon. But that's for another time. As for right now, let's go ahead. Oh boy, let's go ahead and shoot our shot.
Take that!
Mikotoba. Heaven help us. Another Japanese. An expert in forensic medicine, my lord. Professor Eugene Mikotoba. 16 years ago, he came to London with Seishiro Jigoku and Genshin Asogi as a visiting student. And what could his testimony possibly tell us? Professor Mikotoba was the primary assistant during the autopsy in question. He was also the person who actually penned the report. Incorrect. The autopsy was carried out by the coroner, Dr. Wilson. The report carries his signature. It was the primary assistant's duty to keep a written record of the coroner's work during the procedure. In actual fact, the coroner merely read over the report at the end and signed it. In other words, Professor Mikotoba witnessed the entire autopsy from start to finish. The defense demands that Professor Mikotoba be summoned as a witness as a matter of urgency. Whatever really happened in that autopsy laboratory 10 years ago is something only he can tell us. The defense's demand is denied. What? But Professor Mikotoba is in London at this very moment. We could summon him to the witness stand in minutes. No, of course he's not going to agree to it. Strongheart has no intention of summoning anyone who knows. He's too concerned about protecting himself. Prosecutor Isogi, let me refresh your memory, as you seem to have forgotten the prosecution's stance. Only minutes ago, you accused the defendant of being the Reaper and of masterminding the assassin exchange. I did, yes. So present your evidence for those claims and make your case complete. At this time, I don't have the requisite evidence, but that's exactly why we need witness testimony. The professor case is closed. There are no clues in the distant past that will bolster your argument today. I'm afraid to say, Prosecutor Isogi, that you would appear to be possessed by the spirit of your late homicidal father. Now, as I stated earlier, this court has already reached a conclusion with respect to the matter at hand. Inspector Gregson was murdered by Japanese Supreme Court Judge Seishiro Jigoku. As for any hidden circumstances that may exist, they will be investigated in due course by the proper authorities. But we all know what will happen. That'll just give the mastermind of the whole venture time to cover his tracks again. By which you mean me? Yes, I do. Your punishment for this contemptible behavior will be decided at a later date. As for you, Prosecutor Isogi, you will be remanded following these proceedings. Willingly, I trust, since you gave your word. This futile game of revenge is over, young Master Isogi. I cannot do screams like that. But I'm sure that you felt it in the accents of the text there. That will be all. I hereby... Who's the only brave man? Yeah, there he is. I was like, who's the brave man willing to stand up? Mr. Sholmes. This is no place for an amateur detection, Mr. Sholmes. May I remind you that these proceedings are closed to the general public. You will leave the courtroom at once. Mr. Sholmes was instrumental in the apprehension of Seishiro Jigoku before he fled from Europe. The court should hear what he has to say. Lord Mayor Strongheart, it's imperative that you refrain from bringing this trial to an end at this stage. Is it really? And why would that be? You need only recall your own words from the opening of the trial to answer that question, if I may. We will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Surely it can't be that the shock of being accused of being the Reaper yourself has erased that from your memory, can it? The whole truth, sir, has already been uncovered. It would seem that we have a great many important members of the judiciary present here today. I put it to you, my dear fellows, should the trial end at this juncture? After all, why have you been invited to attend? To nod along to the prevarications of your superiors? Order! Order in court! It seems to me that we stand before a door that leads to a new era of legal practices, a door that is ajar. Let us emerge from the shadows of the Reaper's decade-long ascendancy. For you and you alone, my dear fellows, have the power to push this door open now. The auditors in the gallery have no rights to express an opinion on court proceedings. Silence! He's right. The judge has absolute authority here. Yes, if he calls the trial to an end, it must end. But will that really do? I sense dark things occurring behind the scenes. Dark things indeed. Is there a single person here who doesn't... I couldn't fucking read that one. I'm gonna read it again. Is there a single person here present who can honestly say he doesn't sense the same? What's... The trial should go on. Summon the witness. That's right. We need to clear this up before that young Japanese fellow is rendered into custody. My lord, you assured those present that you would uncover the whole truth here. Vindicate yourself of this outlandish accusation. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's the very foundation of British law. A toast to my dependable colleagues in the gallery. On with the trial! On with the trial! Testify! 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 Well, my lord, you hear the voice of British justice, I take it. I think you'll find it will be rather awkward to silence. The court will recess briefly. I have no intention of shrinking from these allegations. Bailiff, arrange for the subpoena of the witness at once. As soon as the gentleman arrives at the courthouse, we shall reconvene. A recess won't be necessary, my lord. Pardon? Mikotoba is a close friend of mine. He accompanied me today and is waiting in the antechamber as we speak. I do believe he's been enjoying a little trip down memory lane, in fact. What? Professor Mikotoba is here in the courthouse? Mr. Sholmes, you didn't know this would happen, did you? Of course he did. My dear fellow, no one is in a better position to answer that question than you, Shirley. I wasn't just asking for the fun of it, you know. Well, I must thank you for your assistance in this matter, Mr. Sholmes. However, you are of no further use here. Kindly leave the courtroom at once. But of course, in truth, I find myself rather busy now as a result of these developments. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I trust you have Iris's little lucky charm with you? Absolutely. It's still in my pocket. She sends her regards, and a reminder. If you find yourself at a dead end, the ears are at your disposal. Just one tug, if you please. Oh, of course. In that case, the trial will continue without delay. Bailiff, show the witness to the stand. So it's Lord Stronhard. He's the Reaper of the Bailey. Where exactly is this trial going to take me, I wonder? Just how deep am I about to be plunged into the blackness of the abyss? Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to head into the heart of this maelstrom and confront whatever horrors it tries to drown me under. To be continued. Yay, we got a save point. Fuck. Ugh, gotta adjust myself in my chair. Of course I'm gonna fucking save. Are you kidding me? Trial, part 3. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh, you're here too, Gory. Gory? Yeah, Maria Gory. We got 3 here this time, and what a collection of witnesses it is. I don't remember what voice I gave Gory. I think I can probably do it. So, witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. Eugene Mikotoba, lecturer in forensic medicine at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo, Japan. And, Professor Mikotoba, the young lady beside you is... Ah, this is Dr. Maria Gory, Scotland Yard's practicing coroner. the daughter of Dr. Scythe, as I understand.
Yes, Dr. Scythe.
I'm afraid I can't tell you why she's here. She just appeared. That's kind of funny.
You summoned this strange Japanese man as a witness to that autopsy. But you don't summon Mama. That makes no sense. She was there too.
That's about the size of it. I've had her eyes boring into the side of my cheek constantly, whilst I was in the antechamber too. Poor man, the idea of it's making me shudder. Well, as long as she's not sharpening her knives while she's staring at me, I don't think I'm on the menu, so... The revelations about Dr. Scythe that came to light some days ago defiled the reputation of the entire judiciary. She was therefore deemed unfit to appear as a witness in today's proceedings. The Ministry of Justice's decision on that is final. Well, we wouldn't want any more perjury to be committed, would we?
The Ministry of Justice. Some questionable strings are being pulled, I think. I agree.
I remember you, Dr. Mikotoba. But certainly I never expected to be meeting you under these circumstances. Yes, it's been a long while, Lord Strongheart.
The prosecution understands that you were a visiting student of forensic science in London until 10 years ago.
That's right. I studied under Dr. Wilson at St. Sinners. So you were present at the autopsy of my brother, Lord Clint Van Zeeks? I was, yes. I assisted Dr. Wilson with the entire procedure.
Mama is far more skilled than any Japanese man.
Well, Dr. Wilson asked me to be his primary assistant on that occasion.
And this autopsy report was actually penned by you, I believe?
Yes. I noted all of the doctor's findings, and when we were done, he read through the document and signed it.
Poor Mama. As secondary assistant, she wouldn't have had such a good view of all the innards.
Okay. So, Professor, do you remember Inspector Gregson? Yes, of course. If it wasn't for his insistence, Lord Van Zeeks' autopsy would have never happened. But he was absolutely convinced that it would reveal decisive evidence against Genshin, you see. So Lord Strongheart had to entreat the nobility to allow it to take place. Do correct me if I'm wrong, my lord. It was as a result of that autopsy that a mass murderer was apprehended and justice was done. Oh boy. I'm already starting to... already starting to lose the voice. There's a lot of voices right now that I have to do. I can do it though. Let's go. But Gregson admitted it before he was killed. He admitted that the results of the autopsy were fabricated. You were there at the time, so you must testify. You have an obligation to tell the truth about what really went on. Absolutely. That's precisely why I'm here.
And that's why I'm here too.
Very well then. You will give your formal testimony now, witness. But before you begin, a word of warning. Oh? You will state truthfully and accurately what you saw and what you heard at the time. I wouldn't dream of doing anything otherwise, my lord. The moment your testimony verges on supposition, I will expel you from my courtroom. Remember that. Basically, I will use whatever legal way that I possibly can to get you out of here, just in case, right? From my own observations, I couldn't say there was any indication of the autopsy results having been fabricated. Death resulted from a wound made by a Western-style sword transfixing the heart. That I found a little strange.
There were no other signs of internal injury, nothing questionable at all. It was just that beautiful but dangerous piece of evidence removed from the man's stomach.
Presumed to have been swallowed by the victim as a way of posthumously identifying his assailant. No indication? Nothing to suggest a fabrication? Professor Mikotoba, are you certain about that? Well, nothing that I could positively identify as such, much less swear to in testimony. Well, that clears things up nicely. The only fabrication here, Asogi, has come from you. What? You claim the inspector confessed just before his death, but that is the fabrication. No, he freely acknowledged it. I swear he did. Freely, with the tip of a sword at his throat. The man was clearly at his wit's end. The court will give no credence to this confession that was uttered in obvious desperation. Quite simply, there was nothing questionable about the investigation of Lord Clint Van Zeeks' death. And with this testimony we have, without question, uncovered the whole truth of the matter. Factually incorrect because I haven't cross-examined it. If I may, my lord. There was most certainly something questionable about it, and the whole truth does rather elude us, I feel. I beg your pardon. Well, you're obviously aware of the facts of the case. All 4 of the professor's previous victims died when an enormous beast was set upon them that ripped out their throats.
Oh, such horrifying crimes.
But curiously, the killer's last victim, Lord Clint Van Zeeks, suffered a different fate. Yes, you're right.
He was stabbed through the heart with the sword.
That's enough. I believe I warned you about this, witness. I promise to curtail your testimony as soon as it entered into the realms of supposition or speculation. Very well, my lord. In that case, the defense will pursue a conclusion to this during the cross-examination. What? I have the right to cross-examine every witness after the testimony. And I fully intend to exercise that right. Ryunosuke.
I'm afraid that even the presiding judge has no authority to contravene the letter of the law, as I'm sure every member of the judiciary present in the gallery would agree.
Can't weasel your way out of that one. Very well. You may begin, counsel. However, the moment your argument strays from the established facts, I will not hesitate to bring the cross-examination to an end. Proceed with caution. Yes, my lord. Oh, boy.
Hold it!
I don't know if I can press or not. It didn't say you couldn't press. You couldn't say? No, sadly not. But then you couldn't say there wasn't any indication either, could you? No, true, I couldn't. I was at Dr. Wilson's side as he performed the procedure, recording what he did. But at times, of course, he instructed me to fetch implements and such like. Whilst I was away from the operating table, obviously I could have missed something. And at those times, what was the secondary assistant doing?
Following this Japanese man's orders to adjust the lighting or pass him implements. But that doesn't mean Mama wasn't a vital part of the team.
Quite, yes. So, would you kindly refrain from staring at my cheek like that? Professor Mikotoba, think! Was there nothing at all that seemed out of place to you? Well, yes, there was, as a matter of fact.
Hold it!
In all of the previous 4 killings attributed to the professor, The victims were killed by an enormous dog, I believe. Their throats were, well, mauled. Correct. And yet Lord Van Zieks was stabbed. Ah, do you mean to say... You think Lord Clint Van Zieks may not, in fact, have been one of the Professor's victims? There is no basis on which to doubt the findings of investigations carried out at the time. But Genshin Asogi confessed to all of his crimes upon arrest. He admitted to having taken the lives of all 5 members of the aristocracy. Ugh! Yet the beast that was used to carry out the killings was never identified. No evidence was found to suggest that Genshin had ever kept a dog. A true hound of hell.
Hold it!
But, you weren't actually present at the autopsy yourself, were you, Dr. Gory?
Does that matter?
Well, I just wonder how useful your testimony can be in that case, really. I mean, it would be different if your mother, Dr. Scythe, were in the stand, but...
I've read all the paperwork about the case, and Mom has told me the story countless times. The statement I just made is exactly what's written in the autopsy report.
I did confirm that myself at the time, it's true. Besides the stab wound, there were no other signs of internal trauma. I see.
Mama told me all about it.
Oh?
She said there was nothing of note internally. But they did find an amazing piece of evidence, something unbelievable.
Unbelievable? What do you mean? Come on, Dr. Gory, what was it?
Hold it!
What exactly was it, though? What does beautiful but dangerous mean?
Well, it was sparkly and round, with a hole, as if it might slip over a finger, perhaps.
It was a ring, belonging to Genshin Asogi. My father's ring was inside the victim's stomach? At the time, Genshin wore a large ring on the digitus quartus of his left hand, the 4th or ring finger. I'd understood it was some sort of keepsake. When my father left Japan for London 6 years ago, I was 8 years old. But I remember that ring.
You do?
My father's possessions were sent to our family home in Japan after his death, but the ring wasn't among them. Obviously not. It was a key piece of evidence. It remains under lock and key in the stores at Scotland Yard to this day. After the autopsy, Genshin was summoned by the police to check for the presence of his ring. It wasn't on his hand, of course. Moreover, there were deep abrasions on his finger where it had been pulled off. They arrested the man there and then, right before my eyes. How could they?
I brought the ring, along with me today.
Oh, really? What?
Here it is. A bit dusty from years in the stores.
Good gracious, yes, that's it. I haven't seen that in 10 long years. And that was found inside the victim's stomach? Yes, I'm afraid so. You hesitated there, Professor Mikotoba. Should we read something into that? Well, it's just that thinking back now. I didn't actually witness the moment it was extracted from the victim's body.
Oh my, really?
At that precise moment, Dr. Wilson had asked me to fetch him a new scalpel, you see. Dr. Gory, the removal of historic evidence from the stores requires my consent, does it not? However it came to be here, the court cannot deny that this is crucial evidence for today's proceedings. Very well, you may submit it. not the sort of ring normally seen in Japan. They almost look like claws protecting that jewel.
We must examine it very carefully, Mr. Naruhodo. Very carefully indeed.
Let's do that. These fat claws are doing a good job of protecting the equally fat gemstone in the middle of this ring.
Yes, if you were clumsy, you could give yourself a rather nasty cut on them, I should think.
Ow! Now my finger's bleeding. The claws really are sharp. Oh my, that was very quick clumsiness, Mr. Naruhodo, even for you. Ugh, who would make such a dangerous ring? You couldn't swallow it without doing yourself some fairly serious damage, surely. Aha.
A sticky mochi bun of about that size would go down much better, with some red bean paste in the middle.
Someone as clumsy as me would probably manage to choke on it somehow. Okay. Looks sharp enough to cause a very nasty scratch. Well, if that's the case, then we know what we need to do. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. That's everything, is it?
Poor father, he looks so troubled.
Perhaps because 10 years ago, something happened that's been weighing on his mind.
Oh.
I couldn't say, were his words. That phrasing was very deliberate, I'm sure.
I wonder if he's had his suspicions all these years.
If that's the case, we need to use this cross-examination to prove what really happened, and remove any trace of doubt.
If we could establish that Kazuma-sama's claim of fabricated evidence was true,
we can't shy away from this now, even if what we might uncover could lead to a total calamity.
Don't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. I'll be right beside you, whatever may happen.
Why, thank you, Susato. You're so nice. So, I would go to the last one here. It says, presumed to have been swallowed by the victim. And then we present the ring. Okay, not on that one, apparently. That last statement seemed a little questionable to me. What do you think, my lord? I see no inconsistency there. Do you? You could span the Straits of Dover with those wide eyes, Counsel, and be gone from this island forever, I hope. Do you want me to fill the English Channel with tears? That wasn't too bad. So, there were no signs of internal injury. Maybe it's this one? Objection! Okay. No signs of internal injury. The court has heard that the ring was extracted from the victim's stomach, but you didn't actually see it being removed, did you, Professor Mikotoba? That's right. As I said in my testimony before, at that moment I was fetching a replacement scalpel that Dr. Wilson had requested. In other words, you can neither confirm nor deny whether this ring, in fact, really came from the victim's stomach or not. What are you suggesting, Counsel? That the ring was never in the victim's stomach to begin with. It's entirely feasible that Dr. Wilson fabricated that detail about the autopsy. What are you saying? That Dr. Wilson was in possession of the ring in advance, after it was somehow stolen from Mr. Asogi. And he produced it during the procedure, pretending to have found it there and then in the victim's stomach. Objection! Supposition at best. What possible evidence do you have to support such a rash claim? This evidence, right here. That's the autopsy report. It's explicit in that report, Counsel. Other than the ring, nothing unusual was noted internally, so I'm not sure how you intend to prove your point. You've already done it for me, my lord. The lack of internal injury says it all. What? To swallow a ring of this size would require considerable effort and determination. And in addition to its size, there are the sharp claws around the gemstone to contend with. My brother was a determined man, and on the brink of death even more so, I'm sure. He would have stopped at nothing to ensure that evil killer was brought to justice. But if he really had swallowed that enormous ring, it's inconceivable that no traces of its passage down his throat would have remained as internal trauma. No! And there you've arrived at the sticking point. That's precisely why I had my doubts about the findings myself 10 years ago. Then why didn't you say something at the time? I did. I still remember the conversation I had with Dr. Wilson in the laboratory that day. Look at this! Now, this is a very curious thing to find in a man's stomach, wouldn't you say? But isn't that rather peculiar, Dr. Wilson? What's that now, Mikotoba? Well, if he swallowed a ring of that size with those sharp metal claws that it has, surely you'd expect to see damage in the throat and esophagus, torn mucous membranes at the very least. Dr. Mikotoba, may I remind you that I have vastly more experience than you. I'm terribly sorry. I can think of plenty of ways to explain why no injuries would be seen. No, let's say this. The victim would appear to have ingested the item as evidence to identify his assailant. Go ahead, write it down. So I was right. Dr. Wilson deliberately fabricated the results of the autopsy to implicate my father. I'm disappointed, Counsel. That argument is nothing more than speculation. What? Dr. Wilson was Britain's leading authority on forensic science and autopsy work. There is no scientific basis on which to doubt the man's expert opinion. Pardon the interruption, my lord, but damage to the mucous membranes of the throat is easily identified even in living subjects.
Using a device called an endoscope, recently demonstrated in practical use in France. I want one. The government could pay.
I don't think so. And Dr. Gorey, rest assured that your removal of evidence from the stores without permission will not go unpunished.
We open up the dead to find the truth.
I beg your pardon?
But Mama, she chose to stitch her corpses up with all her secrets inside. That's wrong.
Dr. Gorey, it's looking as though she's chosen to walk a different path to her mama. Yes, the ring. What about the ring? I've just remembered something. An earlier incident. What incident? The one I recounted to you before, about a memory I have. Of Genshin Asogi saving my life. What? My father saved your life? It was 10 years ago, on a foggy night. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at a late hour. All of a sudden...
Don't make a peep. You're coming with us.
All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scarves. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He'd shielded me. It was on the ring finger of his left hand that he used to wear that ring.
Are you saying?
I've always believed those thugs were after me. But now I'm starting to question if perhaps I wasn't the intended target after all. Wait, but... Genshin was arrested 2 days after that attack. And in that short interval, the decisive evidence needed to indict him was miraculously found.
You mean the ring was stolen from him? You think that's what those thugs were after that night?
Objection!
Ooh.
You pathetic coward! You expect me to believe that you weren't involved?
What do you mean by that?
It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who took it. You stole my father's ring. You set the whole thing up so you could paint him as a mass murderer and have him arrested.
Kazuma, open your eyes.
Ryunosuke?
You must know now, deep down. The truth can be completely obscured even when your judgment is only slightly clouded. But at the moment, you seem to be floundering through a dense fog. Is that why you were so insistent I should be present in this trial? To see you like this? Well, this is an amusing spectacle. What a grandiose expression on your face, as if you were Lady Justice herself. It seems you've thoroughly convinced yourself of this alleged fabrication of the autopsy results. So much so that you're apparently blind to the blatant contradiction that would be born out of it. What? Though it's extremely hard to believe, let us imagine that there was some misconduct during that autopsy. If that were the case, why would Asogi not have disputed the findings in his trial? Oh. In the closed court hearing 10 years ago, the defendant never once denied the claims against him. Isn't that right, Lord Van Zeeks? Yes, that is indeed correct. Upon hearing the verdict of guilty, he merely closed his eyes, quietly accepting the judgment. The actions of a man who has accepted responsibility for his deeds and is resigned to his fate. But then...
Oh my, that is very strange. If Mr. Asogi did nothing to oppose the charges against him, then... that would surely mean there was no fabricated evidence.
An obvious conclusion at which you should have arrived many minutes ago, Prosecutor Asogi. Your twisted loyalty and clouded judgment are hampering your ability for logical thought. Ugh! Genshin Asogi's silence at his hearing can only mean one thing. There was no fabrication of evidence during the autopsy of his final victim 10 years ago. Ah!
This is back and forth right now. But if that autopsy was all above board, there will be nothing to stop Lord Strongheart bringing this trial to an immediate conclusion.
Objection!
Oh, who was that? Oh, that was Kazuma's objection. Thank you, Ryunosuke. If it wasn't for your frank words just now, this trial may very well have ended prematurely. Kazuma?
What's this latest absurdity, Counsel?
My lord, your reasoning is perfectly sound. But for one giant hole...
I beg your pardon?
You claim my father's silence was due to the fact that there was no fabricated evidence. But there's another possible explanation. You've overlooked the possibility that he had a reason for maintaining that silence.
Silence that would lead to him being convicted and sent to his death? If the autopsy results were an invention, there's no conceivable reason why the man wouldn't have protested.
Objection!
Oh, those results were an invention, all right. There's no question of that. Or are you forgetting that 2 people with a connection to that autopsy have been assassinated? If I force the grievances I feel from my mind, I start to see you in a very different light. I think perhaps it's you who's been living in delusion these 10 years. Me? That was a weird voice line for me. Me?
Kazuma-sama has created one last chance for us here, Mr. Naruhodo. If we can only show there was a reason for his father's silence in his trial.
A reason why the man would have said nothing even though he was innocent? Could it have been part of some negotiation, perhaps? Enough rhetoric. The court must be shown evidence. What proof do you have that could possibly explain Asogi's silence in court?
The first thing that I'm thinking of is the Asogi papers. I think it's probably this. I want to save. I'm not going to, though.
Take that!
This is the defense's answer to that question. Probably not correct, if that's the case. Yep. As I indicated before, my patience for rhetoric is growing thin. You could have at least accompanied that penalty with an explanation of why that answer was wrong.
If Kazuma-sama's father knew that the evidence being used to convict him was fabricated, why would he have said nothing in his trial?
If it were me, I'd have protested my innocence until I was blue in the face.
So if we're right about the autopsy report's results, there must have been a strong reason for his silence.
Well then, perhaps he was saying nothing in exchange for some sort of clemency? Ah, that could be it. My lord, the defense would like to... Enough rhetoric. Okay, let's try again here. Asogi's silence in court. Huh. I'm not sure. I feel like it's something where he's like trying to protect someone, right? Like, what if he knew who the actual killer was, and he's been trying to protect him all this time? I feel like that has to be it, but I don't know who that would be. Well, I know who it would be. It would be... It's so weird. Recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of the right hand, but no document and corresponding ink was found. Recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of his right hand. Odd. I wish I could sort the evidence. Like, what's relevant? Maybe it's Karuma? But I feel like Karuma's... Yeah, it's marked down over here with any and all material possessions and wealth. Would it be this? Potentially? I honestly have no fucking clue. Once again, I felt completely lost for the majority of this trial, which sucks. Because I feel like if I was able to follow along with it, I would be enjoying it more. Because it feels like these guesses are just like such a stretch, right? It's like, do we really have evidence of that? I mean, this is literally the only thing I can think of. I'm gonna save, because, you know, I mean, I'm not gonna have any other opportunities to do so, I don't think, but...
Take that!
Nope. That didn't work. Well, I'm gonna start loading and just start guessing random things. Because I honestly have no idea. Asogi's silence in court. I don't fucking know.
Take that!
Nope. Just keep going. Just keep on rolling.
Take that!
Nope. Nope, don't save. There we go. We're just gonna keep doing this until I get something. I'm only picking the evidence that is relevant. Already presented that.
Take that!
I mean, I've presented almost every piece of evidence that has any relevance to that case back then. So I don't know what the hell it is.
Take that!
This? Really? How the fuck does that have anything to do with it? It's true that Genshin Asogi's silence during his trial resulted in his conviction, but that didn't actually lead to his execution. On the contrary, it led to his escape, an escape that was only possible because he'd been sentenced to death. Although I find it hard to believe my father would have negotiated in that way, the defense is correct. A fake execution, falsification of a death certificate, and a jailbreak inside a coffin. Clearly such an elaborate plan couldn't have been carried out by my father alone. He must have had the help of a collaborator from the judiciary. I have here the dismissal notice of the chief warder who was working in the prison at the time. The notes read, there are indications that the jailbreak was in planning prior to the inmate's incarceration. In other words, there were suggestions of some sort of negotiation between Mr. Asogi and the British government.
In exchange for his silence in court, he was given an assurance that he would be broken out of prison. Yes, with that sort of clandestine agreement in place, I can imagine he would have kept very quiet. I would go further than that, in fact. I would say that the elaborate jailbreak of Mr. Asogi can be explained in no other way. That was a weird jump in reasoning, in my opinion. Order, order! First fabricated evidence and now a jailbreak conspiracy. Of course, because it's all intimately linked. The prosecution wishes to summon new witnesses to the stand. Witnesses? People who can testify about the jailbreak that took place 10 years ago. Ah.
Governor Kaiden? And the poor chief warder of the prison.
I won't allow this trial to turn into a farce, to summon the governor of the prison after all these years. Oh, it wouldn't be any trouble, my lord. What?
Father?
My dear friend may appear to be a little rattle-pated at times, but I can assure you he is extremely thorough. He wired both Barclay and the local prison earlier, asking Governor Kaiden and Mr. Vigil to attend the Old Bailey as a matter of extreme urgency.
Mr. Sholmes did that?
Are you telling me that? Both men are, unless I'm much mistaken, waiting just outside the courtroom at this very moment.
Oh, we're gonna have a 5-witness stand here? Just bring in everyone, why don't you?
My lord, you must permit this trial to proceed as you declared at its outset. You promised that we would stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Very well. Bring in the witnesses. Make no mistake, I, too, would like nothing more than to lay this business to rest once and for all.
We shall see.
Oh boy. I gotta do this dumbass Scottish accent again.
But I think for right now, we are going to do that in the next episode.
Oh boy, we still got so much time left. Oh.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this right now. My voice is killing me. I said I would go until my voice gave out or I finished the game. And it seems like the second one has happened, or the first one has happened first. So, that's going to be it for now. Thank you guys very much for watching, and in the next episode, maybe we'll finish it? Probably not. It'll probably take a couple more.